All right, welcome everybody. It's Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, and we are here today to talk about the real Express Entry 2.0. We'll get to that in a second. All right, everyone, like I indicated here, many people are wondering what is this new occupation targeting specific category focused approach that Minister Fraser right here is going to be rolling out here in the spring. Well, many of us speculated for a long time, but I can tell you the details have finally been released, at least as far as I'm concerned. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I thought I would just jump on live because something came across our desk, both in our firm with other lawyers, the Canadian Bar Association, at the very, very last hour. And what is that? It is the government's, well, let me share the screen with you. I'm sure many of you have probably seen it. This is a notification that was given entitled Enhancing Express Entry Through Category-Based Selection to Better Meet Canada's Evolving Economic Needs. So this, you can see, guys, was put out by the government in an effort to seek feedback on what this new system should look like. Now, the interesting part is I am not familiar with anyone who was actually consulted or notified that this release was sent out. And personally, I think it's pretty disingenuous of Minister Fraser to launch this and give hardly any notice whatsoever. In fact, one of the lawyers, a good friend in Calgary, stumbled upon this on the very, very last day. And you can see that the request for input on what these new targeted draws should look like by Minister Fraser, it was actually launched. You can see, well, it's already closed. Our consultation period has closed. I don't know, what was it open for? Maybe 6 days. I haven't heard exactly. But you can see here that this was last updated today, January the 17th, because they said we had until January the 16th. I don't know exactly when this was launched, and maybe some of you know, but ultimately, what we're going to be talking about today in this live stream is really what this means. So although they've pushed out here this request for feedback, and they had a nice little form that they had people complete and fill out and then send your responses, the reality is I just shame on the government, because Minister Fraser here and his department did very, very little to try to release this in a timely fashion so that we could actually respond to it. But don't worry about this, you guys. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about Minister Fraser, because as always, the consultation period really wasn't a consultation. They pretty much already knew what they were going to do, and seated within all of the questions that they asked within documents like this form that they had people respond to, and even in the instructions here, was what they were going to do anyways. So sit back, get something to drink, get prepared for a lengthy discussion, because we're going to dissect this today. You and I, the first I've looked at it was just, probably about an hour ago. And so we decided that we were going to go, actually, I saw it earlier this morning, I should say. And so we decided that we were going to go live and do a live stream on this. So open season, any questions that you have, we can cover them. Don't hesitate to post them in the comment section. I'll definitely address them. But what I want to focus on now is what this new world of Express Entry is really going to look like. And they give lots of nuggets in here. I'll probably write a blog post on this and summarize it. But those of you who are tuned in right now, this is what we're going to talk about, what Express Entry is going to look like in the new world. And why? Because they've given lots of hints throughout this. So I'm going to walk through this with you. I'm going to share with you what the secret code embedded in these, these persuasive paragraphs from the department, what they really mean. Because as always, just like my my previous TR to PR pathway video that I did, and we will address it here as well, there are nuggets in there that people will just say, oh, this is just fluff, there's nothing new. Well, you guys that are feeling like this is just fluff, you're missing the boat. Because if you're wondering the direction that the Liberal government is going and our immigration department when it comes to express entry and the selection of skilled workers for permanent residence, it's all in here. So let's start from the front and let's work through it. Hang on with your questions. You can start posting them now if you like. I will give time at the end of this to talk about it, but this is not going to be some high-level discussion that doesn't cover anything but just the headings, which is most of the YouTubers out there. We're actually going to dive in and we're going to look exactly at what this is saying. So one of the questions right off the bat from Rye here is, how will this affect international students? Well, stay tuned because that is exactly what we're going to be looking at here. Okay, let's jump in and let's work our way through here. So once again, they're trying to convince the rest of the government, even the rest of the government, the rest of the country, the average Canadian and permanent residents, that immigration is critical to our success. So all of this intro stuff is leading in saying how important immigration is to the future of Canada. And we can skim through this. They talk about how important the current express entry process is to managing the immigration applications when it comes to skilled workers. And we know that some of you have benefited from the shift to a tier system. Yes, the whole portal has been a gong show, but there has been a number of NOC Cs and Ds that have been elevated to a tier 3 that can now qualify where they didn't before. There are fewer that have been dropped off. One that slipped through the cracks that I didn't notice was you specialized livestock workers out there, because you guys have been dropped down to a tier 4 and are no longer qualified through express entry. But if you're in Alberta, you're good to go still. All right, so you can see here, they're currently working to implement a new way of selecting candidates, which we've known literally since back in May, I think it was. I'm trying to remember exactly when Bill C-19 came into effect, but that's the reality. And so, of course, they say until January, we're looking for your feedback. This is a joke. Minister Fraser, I'm not impressed at all with this. And why would you even bother if you never gave people a legitimate opportunity to respond? So, but what it means is they don't really want or care about your information. They've collected enough data over the last couple of years that they don't need to really get information. So this was lip service. This is part of their obligation to leave it open for questions and comments, but not really notifying people when it was open and keeping it a secret. They didn't even notify the Canadian Bar Association. I'm assuming they didn't notify CAPIC either, the Consultant Association. So who are these wide range of stakeholders from across the country that they actually consulted with? I'm curious because, anyways, we don't know who it is. So apparently they consulted with a wide range of stakeholders to create or start to create a direction for these targeted draws. They can see over the past 2 years, they learned a lot from the contributions that were made to, and the consultations that were made that contributed to the annual levels plans. And we know with the annual levels plans that they're ambitious. They're growing. There's going to be over 80,000 skilled workers through the high skill categories for 2023. And there's going to be over, I think, 100,000 for next year, not including the PNPs. Okay, so you can see here that the consultations on category-based selection in express entry build on those conversations that were entered into in terms of levels planning, and to consider how we could select skilled economic immigrants within the broader parameters established by the levels plans and the economic priorities that could be supported. So basically what this code is, we've got a system in place. We're likely not going to create something new. We're going to build off of what we have, and these new fandangle powers of this Minister Fraser is going to have a tremendous amount of flexibility in how he is going to roll this out. Okay, let's dive in a little bit deeper. So they go into the Canada's demographics and the economic situation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. You can see that, yes, currently 1.43 children per woman in 2021. Well, what does that mean? It means that we are not having enough babies to replace our existing population. Immigration is critical. And you can see that that's even down from 10 years previous, where it was 1.61 in 2011. All right. You can see that the share of older individuals, 65 or older, is increasing, and the current worker to retirer ratio is 4 to 1. Well, years ago, it was like 8-to-1. So there's plenty of workers to support people in their retirement. It's just not happening. And in the next, 20 years or less, they expect that to fall to 2-to-1. So that's how many retired people. So what is going to happen? They need people to replace the workers to contribute to the costs of those who are accessing the social programs in retirement. We are a socialist country. We're not a capitalist country. We're a socialist country. And all of those social services, someone has to pay for them. Okay. So as we skip through here, I'm going to jump through the other stuff. Remember, 82,880 is what they're targeted for 2023, and it's only going to go up. All right. So how immigration supports economic growth. We don't need to spend any time there. All of you guys know this. So this is all spiel that the government's, putting out there to convince those who are not on side with immigration that this really is a good thing. And just to reiterate the rationale and why they're doing what they're doing. Okay. So key insights from Express Entry. This is interesting, you guys, because this tells a tale. This tells us what happened between 2019 and 2021. And as you go through here, they point out the most common, the primary occupations that were driving the ship through 2019 and to 2021. And what are those things? What happened during that time? Well, it was the pandemic. So this is slightly skewed. And likely things will change, but over that period of time, food service supervisors, admin assistants, financial auditors and accountants, retail, you can see here. Yes, developers and engineers. Well, we know that there are starting to be layoffs in IT. So I'm curious how they're going to do it, when their consultations are based on maybe 1 or 2 years ago. Well, how is that going to impact in sectors where there are current layoffs starting to happen? Professional occupations in advertising, marketing, and public relations, cooks, computer programmers and interactive media developers, information systems analysts, user support technicians. Wow, I can tell you, I had a ton of clients that I went through Express Entry that were user support technicians. And heck, I think I probably had a client through every single one of these occupations. Restaurant and food service managers, administrative officers. So I honestly think that I probably had clients in every single one of these sectors over the period of 2020 to 2021. And of course, they say that, yes, because of the lockdowns and the restrictions, that it affected occupational profiles. And of course, food service supervisors, admin assistants received a higher proportion. And remember, there was that massive draw in 2021, the Feb 13ers, where there were over 27,332 candidates that came through. All right, let's keep zipping through here. So as we look here as well, you can see that when they look at the demographics, it's not surprising. The comprehensive ranking system was designed to reward young, highly educated people with just enough work experience to make them relevant and high language ability. So yes, 75% in 2021 had at least 3 years of post-secondary education. Why? Because you need that to get any level of traction with the skill transferability factors. And then the majority of candidates were in their 20s and 30s. In fact, you guys, 64% of the invitations extended were for ages 20 to 29. Really, it's a young person's game, at least in the previous world of human capital, where there's no program specified draws. These human capital factors are critical. And look, only 19% were 30 to 34. And of course, the rest was all spread out with the old fogies like me. So candidates also have a high level of official language, which you can see 83%, of course, had at least a 7 or higher. And in all honesty, unless you had Canadian work experience, excuse me, you pretty much need a level 9 if you were coming through outside. And I can guarantee that this number, 83%, was probably, if you looked at before the pandemic, anyone with a level 7 probably wasn't ranking very high. But over time, because of the pandemic, really people that were in Canada were the ones that were being drawn because of the border closures. Okay. And then here's another noticeable thing. 2,517 candidates back in 2021 had French language proficiency. Well, I can tell you now that number is way higher. If I look just at the proportion of clients that retain our firm, and I want to give a shout out to all of the lawyers at Holthe Immigration Law, Alicia, Cedric, Chanel, and all of our support staff, because they've been doing the lion's share of the support of all of our clients who hire Holthe Immigration Law, who is the sponsor of this, to assist our clients with the express entry process. So let's keep zipping through here because I know this is what you guys want to look at, okay? What is category-based selection? And this is where you really, really need to pay attention, okay? What I'm talking about right now is really important because some of the examples that they give, they're literally designed to influence the way people are thinking. It's kind of like asking a question to someone in the form of an answer. So it's like saying, why do most Canadians like express entry? What is your answer, right? It's implying right off the bat that, you know, that most Canadians, well, they ask the question, why are most Canadians? Well, maybe most Canadians don't. Maybe most Canadians don't even know anything about express entry, but by asking or phrasing the question, you're already telling the person who's answering it what they're supposed to answer, you know? So when you look at the category-based selection, this examples that they give here, let's identify these very carefully because they're going to give a secret. They're going to reveal the secret behind where Minister Fraser, where he's headed. It's going to be right in here. And let's dive in and let's take a look at it. So one of the things that they define is that the whole purpose of this category-based selection is to select immigrants based on key attributes that support identified economic priorities. And then they give examples. What are some of those key attributes? Education, work experience, official language knowledge. And this isn't English, okay, guys? This is French. This isn't English, it's French. So this is where you pay attention. For example, we could create a category for those with work experience in a particular occupation. Well, we've talked about that since the cows come home, right? We've talked about, well, okay, they could select people with just a specific knock code. And so if your knock code is in a particular area, then you may have a greater chance of getting that invitation to apply. So we've known that since the beginning. That's one of the factors they could look at. But they have more insight here, or with a particular educational background. So maybe we need more software developers. So if you have a software, you know, a degree in software development, you're a computer engineer, you've got a degree in whatever, they could target candidates based on that. That is the degree of powers that Minister Fraser has as a result of the Bill C-19. So as we keep going through here, they could include multiple characteristics. And this is where the question right at the beginning was asked here. Let's jump back here. There's a bunch of questions that have come in here. Rai says, how will this affect international student applicants? So that's what he's asking. Well, the reality is the answer is right here, Rai. So it says such as international students who graduated with a particular degree. So they could say you're on a, you know, you've got this degree or hold a certain language level. So they could say, well, any post-grad work permit holders, you know, who have graduated and have Canadian work experience. Now, remember, you have to still qualify through one of the categories, and that's addressed specifically down here. So candidates have to qualify first through one of the CEC, FSW, or federal skilled trade programs. They're not doing away with that. That's an important part of this. So they're building on what's already there. And so they could say, if they have that 1 year of experience, it could be an international student who has a particular degree or holds a certain language level. So this is where I'm going to get in your face a little bit, you guys. I'm going to get right in your face. You have to pay close attention, if you're not in Canada right now, to where you're going to study. Not all schools are created equally. And I want to point back to my YouTube channel. And if you guys have not yet watched the video or read the blog post that I did on this specific topic, and I'll show you right on the YouTube channel where you can find it. If you go here and you look at the videos that we've done, let's see right here. If you have not watched the TR to PR pathway, there's a reason there's 46,000 people have viewed it. In here, I go in depth in my 6th takeaway where IRCC is going with respect to study permits, as well as key industries and everything. So I put these in here at the beginning, and I haven't gone back to see which ones I selected and which ones the minister is focusing on in this circular that he announced here. But you have to realize that they can pull on all kinds of factors. And if you've gone to a private school that doesn't even offer post-grad work permits, and the education that you've undertaken is something that doesn't even affect or even come close to the industries that the minister has been talking about, or where the skill shortages are, you are wasting your money. You're wasting it. Okay. So I won't waste too much time going through this, but understand that this is a big thing. International students who graduate with a particular degree or hold a certain language level. What's that language level? Probably French. Who meet a particular category would be ranked according to their CRS score, and the top among them invited to apply. So what does this mean? Well, this means that the scores are not just going to disappear. And you may be in a situation where they invite a cohort of people, a group that is for a particular NOC code. But just like the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, the Human Capital Priority Stream, they may have a slot, or they may say, probably not a slot, but they might say, we're going to draw it. We're going to cross over at 2,000, and we're looking to draw 2,000 software developers. And so if your NOC code is at this level or higher, we're extending the invitation to you. And so you may very well hit in the target that they're identifying. But if your comprehensive ranking system score is low, maybe you're 50 years old compared to a 29-year-old, that could be the difference, even though you've got loads of experience in that particular NOC code. You might be under consideration, but the cutoff, you might be below it. So please be aware of that. They're not doing away with it. And I'll show you some other things that I want you to pay attention to. So category-based selection is limited to candidates who qualify. So you have to meet the programs. So they're under this, the way they're talking about it, obviously express entry is built on these programs. So this isn't addressing like the TR to PR where you could technically get through without that 1 year of skilled work experience. And so this, you do have to have at least 1 year. Otherwise, you're not getting through. And you can see it will comprise a portion of overall ITAs. And invitations based on the comprehensive ranking system scores and individual programs will remain. So what does this mean? Please understand this. It will comprise a portion of overall ITAs. This to me means that they are not going to do away with no program specified draws. I think there will be times where they will open it up just to CEC, or they will do a no program specified, but at the same time, they are going to be targeted. So all is not lost for people who have high human capital, who have over 500 points, but may not have work experience in one of the industries that will be isolated right here. And I'll talk about it. All is not lost. And yes, Canadian experience is going to be ever more important, but when you're looking for individuals who have particular work experience, skill sets, there are reasons that there are shortage in Canada. It's because we're not pumping out enough grads to fill the needs in our schools. So in particular, and we'll get to this, maybe there's STEM workers abroad who will have opportunities, who will be able to get through because they have work experience in a certain NOC code. And maybe their scores are in the 460s. Right? Maybe they're high human capital generally, but because their NOC code is in the right industry, you could very well get drawn. So that's where things are it's going to be a great leveling. It's not just going to be on human capital, but it's also not just going to be on targeted draws. Okay. So now this is the part that really is interesting to me. And I want to point something out to you. This is not the first time that Canadian immigration, the Department of Immigration, whether it was citizenship and immigration for years and years, or whether it's immigration, refugees, and citizenship, Canada, which was something that the Liberals coined after they were elected a number of years back. Now it looks at the process of determining categories. So this is exactly, they're telling you already how they're going to be doing this. Its categories for category-based selection will be determined by. So they're already saying what they're going to do. Collecting data and analyzing labor market information. Well, what is the problem with relying exclusively on this? The labor trends change so fast. And I spoke with a colleague. Well, I put out an email to a lot of my friends just to see their take on this, because no one even saw this until it was basically over. Now, I'm not going to say that IRCC actually posted this. If we go back down here and we look at the day on which it was last updated, which was today, because they probably then, the update was this here saying it's now closed, right? That was probably it. But ultimately, how long was it open? I don't know. And I'm not going to say that they just opened it yesterday because that was the first time we saw it, but whatever, you know, they clearly didn't open it up and leave it open long enough for everybody. So, so basically back to here, they use data, historical data. So if we look at Alberta, for instance, you know, they look to the provinces for direction. So labor market information, in addition to receiving feedback from our partners, well, heck, you guys, you and I are not partners of IRCC because they don't freaking care. I don't know who they're talking to, but at any rate, they've got their own ideas fully formed long before they set out this joke of a request for feedback. And Minister Fraser, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm really frustrated with this. I'd like to know who you actually spoke to. That's who I'd love to see. Because you guys talk about open government. Well, bloody well show us who it was that you talked to. Because the vast majority of people that I know, including large industry, including those on your list, never heard a peep about this. So who did you consult with? And that's great concerns, because when you have a list that you're creating by government, how you create that list automatically gives favor to certain individuals, certain industries. And when you talk about reliance on data, on, you know, the past labor market information and projections, which are just guesses, everything is influenced by politics. And let's face it, a lot of immigration has been driven by politics. And so whenever you're creating these lists, you really expose yourself without full transparency, Minister, to people questioning how these lists are created. We saw this in Alberta with the creation of our excluded list of occupations. How were they created? I could never figure it out. When I sat on the national executive, we sat in meetings with IRCC and ESDC, and they said it was given to us by the province. I talked to the provincial authorities, and they said, no, that's in consultation with IRCC. So transparency will be critical, Minister, going forward. All right. Continuing down here, like I said, they will look at the provinces and territories and these key stakeholders across the country, who I don't know who they are, but the provinces and territories rely upon their own labor projections. And if I open this up, let's see if I can find, I'll give you an example of one of these places through, you know, discussions I've had with IRC, with the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. I had discussions with them in the past about the changes and the impacts of IRCC's decisions. I had lots of discussions with them, but this is one of the sources that Alberta relies upon. Oh, let's see, not that one. Let me find the right link here. Clicked on the wrong link, this one. So Alberta Occupational Outlook. So this is what they look at. So if you're looking to go to Alberta and you're wondering, hey, is my occupation something of interest to the province of Alberta, Alberta will influence the decision-making of the federal government with express entry. So Alberta's Occupational Outlook every 2 years to predict 10 years of job shortages and surpluses. So understand that this is always going to be behind. It's going to be based on projections, but they're only updated every 2 years. So a lot can happen in 2 years. And you can see for Alberta here, the following are a few of the occupations with forecasted labor shortages of more than 3,000 in Alberta by 2030. So each province has this, and you can see the list: receptionists, construction, info systems, graphic designers, school teachers. That's great. My daughter's going through to complete her teaching degree, and she's in her second professional semester. So there you go. Administrative assistants, home building and renovation managers. Heck yeah, there's such a huge labor home crisis in Canada. That makes perfect sense that it would be here in Alberta. General office support workers, accounting techs, petroleum engineers. So you can see these are just some, and then they talk about others like health, and I won't spend any more time on this, but you can see that each province has resources that are public that they rely upon. So I'd encourage you to educate yourself. Okay, and then this is one of the things as well that I want to point out to you guys. So it will allow us to explore whether category-based selection can be an appropriate tool to address the identified needs and priorities, and whether other immigration tools may be more appropriate, okay? Such as temporary programs. Do we expand and make it easier for the labor market impact assessment process to, for employers to apply? Well, yeah, they're already working at it. Although I'm still getting pushback from ESDC, that's really irritating me with one of the large construction companies that we're working for that is in the process of applying for a labor market impact assessment. It's really, really difficult to bring in foreign workers. Federal pilots, what are they? Just yesterday, I was in Claresholm attending a special event hosted by the town of Claresholm. And I was there with some wonderful liaison officers of the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot from Ottawa. Exceptional, exceptional officers. I really, really like what they're doing, as well as a representative and a colleague that I work with in our local immigration partnership here in Lethbridge, who is a representative from the Alberta Immigration Department, essentially, and employment, who was also there talking about the changes to Alberta's the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. They have rural renewal streams and rural entrepreneur streams. They're trying to push people rural. I'll get to that in a little bit. But these are the, and provincial territory programs, of course, these are other tools that they're looking at to meet these needs, which you've seen already from the levels plans that the provincial nominee programs and their selection has outstripped the federal high skill programs. And so please understand that everything that's happening here is not the end of the world. In other words, what they're looking at is to determine if, and like they said here, explore whether category-based can be an appropriate tool. Well, if I talk with a lot of my colleagues in the past, and I have my own views, okay? I've been practicing for just about 20 years. I've got colleagues that have been practicing for, well, some of you, I know you're probably pushing 40, but the reality is this was something that they used to do in the past, and it becomes very political. And it's hard for that list of occupations, if the minister is relying upon them, to remain current, because the data is always just speculation, or if they're relying upon old data, it's just that, it's old, and it's hard to stay current. So what happens? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so if you are a powerful lobbying group, and you are really lobbying the Liberal government, because that's who you're lobbying, right? They're the ones who control this. Then you're going to have a greater chance of getting your particular industry in that occupation specific sector that Minister Fraser right here, who is a Liberal minister, he's going to be influenced by this, right? And so this is one of the dangers, and that's why transparency, and I'm going to pull Minister back on here, that's why the transparency for how these programs and things, how the decisions are being made is so critical. Now, I'm going to give the minister credit for this next paragraph here. As we slide over here, you'll see that once categories are decided on by the minister, there he is. How you doing, minister? They will be announced before the ITAs are issued. So I don't know how far in advance, but they'll be announced before we issue invitations. So if Minister Fraser here is telling us that they're going to start this in the spring, then it's not going to be too long now before we get an idea exactly of where they're going. But in reality, you guys, we don't really need to wait, because Minister Fraser here has already told us. He's told us exactly what they're going to do right here, and even the industries. Let's keep diving in here so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So after they've done this, each year, they have to report to Parliament on the categories that were chosen during the previous year and the selection process, okay? And why they did it. So that transparency is good. And I sure really, really hope that the minister is going to be transparent far in advance than waiting until the department, the whole year later, gets a report. We've seen how long it takes for those reports to come out, right? And that doesn't help people who are trying to manage their affairs now or determine if Canada is even an option. So they'll continue to measure and report on the outcomes, and including those selected through the category-based selection. When they say including those selected, it once again reiterates that this is not going to be only a category-based process. The minister is not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Are you, Minister Fraser? No, he's not. So he will continue, and obviously, yes, this is my views, and I'm not guaranteeing that I know what the minister is going to do. But these wording, if you read through the lines, you can see that the standard way of doing it, CEC only draws, federal skilled trade only draws, or no program specified draws are within the toolbox. He just has a whole lot more tools in there. All right. And then as you look here, as we continue on, lessons learned in implementing will help to inform what it looks like in the future. All right. Okay. So I know we've got a little bit more here, because the next thing I'm going to cover is the proposed priorities and categories for selection. We're going to get into that in just a second. I know that a lot of people here have been posting comments, and I do want to acknowledge you that you're here. And so Izan says, there are so many people with postgrad work permits expiring soon. You are right, my friend. It's a disaster. I just don't know what they're going to do. And you guys have heard, right? You've seen the reports now of the insanity that they're considering. And I guess I shouldn't call it insanity, but to basically open up the coffers and just approve all of them, subject to security checks, to approving temporary resident applications without actually reviewing one of the key pillars of it, which is the ability to demonstrate that a person will return, the bona fides of an application following the completion of their temporary stay. So they're looking at just waiving that. But I'll be honest, I don't know how that's going to solve anything. Then all the people are going to come here, and people that may or may not have been bona fide are going to come, and then they have to deal with extensions or a whole bunch of other things. And so it just kicks the can farther down the road. And yeah, it's just so disappointing that things have evolved to this level. Now, for people who are overseas and they've been waiting, this is pretty cool news. So basically, all you folks, say, for example, in India, who keep getting your applications rejected because of the old Chinook model or mentality using advanced analytics of basically excluding you out because you are, because you've got a family member in Canada and they don't think you'll return, right? Those grounds for refusal that they give, which us lawyers, we're making a lot of money challenging the government through federal court applications because the decisions are not reasonable for how they refuse. So they're saying, well, we'll fix you lawyers. We'll just approve everybody, subject to those who have criminality or are otherwise inadmissible. Hey, you know what? There's a lot of people that'll be really happy until all of those people come, and then how long is it taking right now for work permits to be extended? 5 months? How long is it taking for a visitor record to be extended? Okay, let's take a look at this. I didn't intend to get into this, but hey, let's have some fun. This is open season, so let's have some fun. So let's go to the IRCC processing times, and we open it up. Let's take a look and see how long it takes right now if someone wants to extend their visitor visa in Canada. So imagine if there's like 230, 300,000, I don't know how many are in the queue, waiting to come to Canada, and they're all approved. Look at this. Okay, so temporary residence. And then let's see how long it's taking to extend visitor extension from within Canada. Okay. So if we go here and get processing time, look how long it is. 200 days. Okay. So what is this going to be? Like 2,000 days when you let all these people come to Canada all at once? Who knows? All right. So just some factors to take into consideration. Let's see what else we have here. If there's any other comments we can pull in. Okay, let's see here. We got people complaining. I hear you guys. I hear. Yes, music saying, what about a citizenship course? It's on the radar, you guys. I will get to that one. So could have missed it, way off topic, so not asking Mark. Yeah, no, there's a lot of products that are on the list. There's a lot. We're doing a lot of work with existing clients. And I'll be honest, I'm actively, our firm's expanding, and when I'm busy with client work, I don't have as much time to create courses. Although I did create the study permit course. And if you guys haven't checked that one out, you would better go over to the Canadian Immigration Institute, and you can access it right now. Let's see if I can pull it up here. There it is. So if you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, and it should be in the link below, you can come right here and you can see the courses. So no, I don't have a citizenship one yet. But you can see study permit course. If you are looking to come to Canada, this course is awesome. And I'm so grateful for the first cohort of people that subscribed and were a part of building it out, because I built it based on the needs of people. We've got spousal course, express entry of course, and LMIA for high wage positions. So those are just some of the courses that we have available. There was a COET that's gone. We created one for the 18-month post-grad work permit extension. And so they come and go. All right, let's see what else we have here. Mariana says, thanks for doing this late at night. You're very welcome. When do you think processing times will go back to 6 months? Hoping to get PR this year. Sent EAPR on December 28, 2022. Mariana, I think you've got a very, very good chance of getting it approved. 6 months, they're pretty close to it. Those who are, I just got oh my goodness, I got an approval for a client, and how long has it been? Probably since we filed it, almost 4 years. Almost 4 years. And the client, it's a PNP based. She's in the US. 4 years. Like, I'm not even sure if she really wants to come to Canada anymore with how long that they've made her wait. Anyways, let's see what else we have. There's a couple more and then we'll jump back. Okay, Simar says he's a software engineer, but the points are only 420. Simar, this is a good point, right? If the rounds of invitations targets your NOC code, the NOC code for software engineers, if Minister Fraser says, all those who have software engineering experience, they've got education, whether it's computer science or whatever it might be, or they've got 1 year of Canadian experience under the CEC in this particular NOC code, or they're overseas and they have experience as a software engineer, then anyone over, maybe it'll be 410 and higher will receive an invitation to apply. It depends on how many people like you, Samar, are actually in the pool at the time in which these draws start. So what does that mean? Well, for people who are wondering, is it worth it for me to submit a profile knowing that my comprehensive ranking system is low? Well, the answer is yes. And any of you understand, and I get this question all the time, Mark, do you guys actually represent people? Well, yes, Holthe Immigration Law is our law firm. The Canadian Immigration Institute is how we teach and share knowledge. And so if you look here, you can go click on to speak to a lawyer, which just starts the process. We've got lots of information on immigrating, express entry, other programs. If you're already in Canada, PNPs, all this is on our website, but it all starts with booking a consult with us. And our approach is different. So go to our firm, check out our direct lawyer to client collaboration. There are no middle people with our firm. When you hire us to assist you with your immigration, we are right beside you, the lawyers within the firm. And you can look at our team. We are experienced immigration lawyers. Alicia and I have been at this gig for over 20 years doing Canadian immigration. Chanel and Cedric are highly, highly intelligent and experienced. And Igor is really close. He's a few months away from starting his articles as an immigration lawyer. So all of us are here to help. And all you have to do is click on speak to a lawyer, and then you can easily select the lawyer that you'd like to book a consult with. And then that transitions to us actually representing you as you put your application together and submit it. But we're right beside you. So Samar, that's what we're talking about. All right. Cyan says, I want to thank you, Mark, for following your channel to get more knowledge on immigration. Thank you, my friend. Okay. I agree, Fluffy. I agree. Skilled workers are working here many years, but neglected. I agree. I won't disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so Kutan says, what if you recently changed occupation and updated the profile with a new occupational code? If the initial occupation code is now in demand, will the applicant still be selected? I think personally, the easiest, lowest hanging fruit is that your primary NOC is the one that they're going to identify. That's what the provinces do, right? So if you change your NOC to something else as your primary NOC, then that's the one that I think they're going to target. Now, it may be that the system is sophisticated enough that they can scoop through your work experience and realize that you already have 3 years or 4 years of that experience in that NOC. But I think personally that the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest thing for them to do will be to go off of what you've listed as your primary NOC. All right, let's see what else. Katan says, let's see, Katan's got a question. Okay, I think I just answered that one. Yeah, I got your question, Katan. So thanks for the super there. Okay, let's see what else here. Good question. Olatosin says, what month do you think this will start? Any clues from this article? Well, one thing we know, once again, that Minister Fraser has said the spring, and we've done this so many times. What is the, okay, I'll do it with you guys, okay? What is the last day of spring in Canada? So the minister said that this would start in the spring. And the article said that they would notify people before the first ITA was issued some of the selection categories and how they would be identifying people. So when is it? Sunday, March the 20th to June 21st. So technically, the last day of spring is June 21st. And I seem to remember the minister saying that no program specified draws or rounds of invitation would resume when? In the spring. Well, the ones, when did it resume? It was actually, I think, in July. So ultimately, spring in Canada is June of, is June 21st is the last day of spring. The first day is March the 20th. So you guys can draw your own conclusions from that. That's what you can do, because I'm tired of the crystal ball. I just don't know. Hey, Spidey, good to see you over there in China. Good to see you. We've got Salim here. Thanks, Salim, for tuning in. And yeah, it's awesome. Awesome to see you guys. Okay. Yes, Rupinder, we see a lot of this. What about international students whose postgrad work permits are expiring? Follow me over and let's take a look and see what we got. All right. So if we go back here to our report, let's look at the proposed priorities and categories. So one of the things that we know is there's going to be a huge focus, and this comes right from the, really? Okay. Bear with me, guys. I'm never alone on these journeys. Come on. Let's go. Simba just had a bath. He just had a bath. All right, what do? Your dog wants down. You have to stop a live stream with hundreds of people watching. Okay, let's dive in now and let's look at some of the specifics. Those of you who've stuck around, now you guys are going to be rewarded. And I know people don't have a lot of patience to sit listening to Mark talk for all these hours, but the reality is now this is where the rubber hits the road. Okay, so let's slide back here and let's take a look. So the priorities, where are they based? Well, the minister's mandate letter. We won't have to go through that because they've summarized it. Chronic skill shortages. Okay, that's a key pillar, and French. Simple as that. So what does that mean? French is freaking important, you guys. If you're looking for getting to get bonus points and to lock your way in and to pretty much guarantee you're going to have a pathway, you speak French, you're good to go. Simple as that. There's no getting around it. Okay. So yes, they're looking to fuel the economy, critical labor shortages. They talk about that. That's why they're looking at category based. And what is their focus? Okay. You can see here, express entry could be used. Could. What does that mean? That's code for, that's for sure what we're going to do. So we're going to focus on Francophone and bilingual candidates. Those with experience in select sectors. What are they? We'll get to them. Occupations. And who's on the list? International student graduates and temporary foreign workers. And this comes right back, you guys, from, let's see if I can find this. It comes right back from my TR to PR top 6 takeaways. And this is something that I talked about. And actually, I'm just going to flip over here to our firm website and just identify once again for you guys that in here we have our blog section. And there is a ton of blogs that we've written on all kinds of immigration. So if you don't want to sit here and sit and watch Mark, although this one wasn't very long, it was pretty fast, we got through it pretty quick. It's like 12 minutes, 13 minutes. The blog posts, you can zip through those because a lot of the same content we have there. So if we go through here and we just go down, I think it's on the next page. We've had so much content that we produce. As soon as we hear something, we write a post on it. So if we go to older posts, I think it's right at the beginning here. There is top 6 takeaways. You will see from the minister back when the strategy to expand transitions, when it was released, if we open this in a new link, you can see right here, the minister already emphasized how important temporary resident applicants are to the future of the permanent resident program. So he was responding to motion M44 by his own, I don't know why his own member of his own party is basically forcing him to do something. But anyways, he did. So at the end of the day, this report, and if you look here, this was released essentially in October, the end of October. What the minister is focusing on here is, I basically pulled it out so people wouldn't have to read the report. And these were my top 6 takeaways. So work experience in key sectors are increasingly important. Here's the key sectors that I identified, and you guys will see the same thing repeating itself in the minister's, in this notification, this request for feedback, where he's basically telling you what he's going to do. And you can see job offers from Canadian employers will be much more plentiful and essential. And they are already starting to become more easy to obtain. EE is going to open its doors to low-skilled work experience in Canada. Well, the reason we say that is because some of those C's and D's that were in existence before Tier was launched, and then remember, this was in October when this was done, they actually were elevated. And so there are some in Tier that are now considered to be Tier 3 that would not have qualified for express entry. All right, like truck drivers, like healthcare aides, occupations like that. Rural Canada is on the rise. If you're looking for opportunities, that's where you want to go. Don't go to Toronto. Don't go to Ontario. Don't go to British Columbia. Go to a different province, and you're going to have far more chances to get through. Of course, I hit on French language ability has never been more important, and international students must be strategic about where they're studying in Canada. So all of that just comes to the reality, just points out they are consistent with it. They're absolutely consistent. So if you read what I wrote back in November, you'll see that they are consistent, and this is the direction they're going to be going. All right, so those with experience in those select sectors, occupations, international grads, and temporary foreign workers. And once again, they identified that economic immigration plays an important role in fostering diversity. Okay, so now let's address this. So addressing chronic labor market shortages and positioning for the future. Those reports, if I go back once again to Alberta here in the occupational outlook, okay, these are super important for dictating what direction the government is going. So pay attention to those. All right. Key contributing, it's a key contributor to addressing the labor market shortages. Okay, both for helping for the short-term and long-term prosperity. So if we go down here, I'm not going to look at all the statistics. We're just going to zip through it. But you can see here, this is what I want you to pay attention to. According to Stats Canada. So where are you going to look to get some ideas on skill shortages? Statistics Canada. Okay, most acute shortages are found in, what are they? Construction trades, administrative and support services. Oh, waste management. I haven't seen that one. Waste management. If we go back to the to my blog post, let's see if we can find it here. Is it this one? Oh man, I got too many pages open here. This one. And then we go up to the occupations. This is a new one, and I would add it to this current list here. So I see professional, scientific, engineering, trades, transport, but I don't see, this is a new one, waste management and remediation services, healthcare and social assistance, and other services. So that's just a hint at where they're going. Construction trades. So why? Because we need to build a whole bunch more houses because we're in a housing crisis. All right. Then when they give an example, and remember, possible category. Possible is code for likely category. So selecting candidates based on work experience in a particular occupation sector, right? This is exactly what we're talking about. So what do we have here? You can see experience in particular occupation or sector experiencing chronic shortages could be a way to improve the responsiveness of the economic immigration system. And you can see we would invite you to comment on those chronic. And remember, this is an invitation to comment, but really they're just telling people what they're going to do. So transitioning international student grads to PR. And you can see here, it allows foreign nationals to enter Canada through the international student program, and they bring many benefits, which we know. The government loves international students. They tend to be relatively young, therefore potential to help fill gaps in Canada's workforce long into the future. So why are they so stuck on young people? Well, because they're going to be working, supporting our elderly citizens for 30, 40 years into the future. If you bring in someone who's 50 like me, yes, you guys, I'm 50 years old. I'm pretty much useless. Like I've got another 15 to 20 good years of work under me, and then I'm going to be relying on those social services. So that's why there's such a heavy emphasis on youth, on young people. It's because they want them working and paying tax and, supporting our social services for many, many years. And let's see here what else they have here. International students are also well placed for permanent economic immigration. They're proficient in the language and they have Canadian education as well as work experience That's really the key, right? When someone's immigrating directly who has foreign work experience, it's hard to get employers in Canada to just accept it the same as if it was obtained in Canada. And you can see over 88,000 international grads, an increase of 80% since 2017, come from the ranks of international students. Okay. All right. Okay. And then it says, listen to this, you guys. Nevertheless, we have continued to hear from stakeholders on the desire to expand and simplify pathways to permanent residence for this group. So what this is code. Once again, this is me telling you code. Pay attention to this. It is highly likely they are still going to look at other options for international students outside of express entry. So that's my feeling. Just like the TR to PR pathway was for essential workers and international grads, I think they're not done. And they've said this, they've hinted at it. We don't know exactly what it will look like, but it's entirely possible there could be some type of a program that's specific for international grads. Excuse me. Okay. And you can see a potential category for selection in express entry focused exclusively on international grads could respond more directly to the critical shortages that persist across the sectors. Well, what is one of the things that they did just recently? They opened it up for a very small cohort of international students to work full-time while they're going to school. Personally, Minister, I think that's a disaster. Kids who come and go to school need to get good grades if they want good jobs. And how are you going to do that if you're working full-time and going to school? All it does is foster these goofy private schools that really produce horrible education and don't equip students to go out into the workforce, right? That's what it's doing. It's rewarding them. And so, you have to be very careful as a student. Don't be baited into that, even if you fit. Sure, if you end up working maybe 25 hours instead of 20, sure. But, full-time, 40 hours, overtime, whatever it might be while you're studying, that's a recipe for disaster. And I don't like what Minister Fraser was doing there. Okay. Okay. Another possible category could, or maybe is the answer, to include graduates with a degree or diploma in an in-demand field from a DLI. Okay. And not, like I said, not all DLIs are created equal. And there's lots of programs, and I cover this in my, in the article right here. I cover it like that. There are some schools, especially when I'm talking about right here, how international students need to be more strategic in what they choose for studying and where they go to study. They have to be really, really careful that the schools that they're choosing are going to give them a real good chance of success. Okay. And then it says you may wish to, in your response, good luck, Minister, there, you gave us no time to actually respond, but it says you may wish to address issues such as sectors or occupations with the most critical needs. And here you can see grads with a degree or diploma in skilled trades, health, or in STEM fields, for example. So if they're saying skilled trades, what does that mean? It means that the federal skilled trade program is going to have a resurgence. Okay. And one of the interesting things is when you're applying through express entry, most students don't come and go to school in a skilled trade. They don't. So, in response to this, address issues such as sectors or occupations with the most critical needs. Well, graduates, I don't know if they just don't understand how the skilled trade programs work, but it's really hard for an employer to get an LMIA for any skilled trades. They just don't do it, ESDC. So I wish they would communicate better. But yes, STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, math, absolutely are critical. And you can see whether education or Canadian work experience must be recent, or even whether the students with limited to no Canadian work experience should be considered for eligibility and the scope of overall needs. So this is an interesting aspect, because what it's saying is, even though up here we address the fact that, let's see if I can find it here. Yes, that category-based selection is limited to candidates who qualify for express entry within one of these programs. Remember, all of them require a minimum of 1 year. When we scroll back down here to this section that we were just at, see if I can find it. I think it was here. You could see that they are actually contemplating a world where you've got a graduate, but no Canadian work experience could possibly fit. So what does that mean? Well, does it mean that they're going to create a new program? Possibly. They very well could. So we also invite reflections on how to respond, or how proposed responses could confront any existing barriers for international students. And they list these: racism, sexism, and ableism. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this. Next possible category: transitioning of temporary foreign workers to permanent residents. So you can see the target. So within these groups, you can likely expect there's going to be a targeted draw. It's going to be a mess. There's going to be, it's not going to be predictable. It's going to be all over the map. So they recognize foreign workers are important. Absolutely. And when you look through here, you can see that the overall market conditions are tight. This is really good for job offers. And this is something I want to point out as well, as we really are getting to the end here, guys. Thanks for sticking around. But I want to point out something to you guys as we're talking now about Express Entry 2.0. Please be careful. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. There are just more than I could ever possibly count crooked, evil, corrupt people in your countries who are looking to dupe you out of your money, that are looking to offer you a job offer that's fake, that are going out of their way to just try to trick you into parting with your hard-earned money and leaving you with nothing. They know how desperate you are. They know how much you want to have a new opportunity in Canada. And if it sounds too good to be true, please do not trust them. There are reputable immigration consultants. There are regulated consultants. There are immigration lawyers. There are reputable recruiting agencies that abide by abide by the law in Canada that you can trust. If you are looking to go through an agent in your home country, individuals like myself, we are in a virtual world. You do not need to go through an illegal agent, a ghost consultant in your home country just because they're there. You don't. If you're watching this, you can very easily book a consult with myself or one of the many representatives that are here in Canada, and you can trust that we're going to do it properly. And because if we don't, there are regulators that will take away our license to practice. For me, the Law Society of Alberta will take away my license to practice law if I steal your money and don't provide the service that you need it. Same thing goes for the immigration consultants, although I'm still waiting to see if the regulator is actually going to do things to protect people. The one situation where one of my clients actually complained, and she's now a permanent resident of Canada, but there was an immigration consultant in my own city of Lethbridge here who had employed her illegally for years and had exploited workers for years, taking advantage of them. She's still practicing as a consultant. So I'm, CICC, I don't know what you're doing. But anyways, if I was a lawyer and I did that, I'd have been disbarred. So we'll leave it to that. All right, so be careful who you're using. You can see in certain niches, fast-moving sectors like information technology. Yeah, IT has had periods of booming, and now there's periods of layoffs that are happening. So they provide access to global talent that drives foreign investment, job-generating enterprises, blah, blah, blah. So all of this, you can see, yes, foreign workers are important. And you can see as part of our consultations on immigration levels, we continued to hear, once again, this is not a consultation. Apparently, they consulted with someone about immigration levels. I don't know who it was, but it says from stakeholders that current pathways for TFWs to PR remain insufficient. Well, duh, of course it does. The whole strategy that the minister went to implement here to expand transitions to permanent residence that was released here, it was his own department who was saying that there were problems, right? Randeep Sarai, the Liberal member from Surrey, he put forward the private member's motion to force the minister to release this transition to PR document on how he wanted to do it. Like I said, once again, if you're wondering what it's all about, then just go to the YouTube channel. You can watch my video here or go to Holthe Immigration Law this here, and you can read my takeaways from the report. All right. Okay. We're continuing on. We're just about through this. Okay. As with international students, a category for selection in EE focused on transitioning skilled TFWs could improve responsiveness to chronic economic needs. Well, yes, in part, but here's the challenge that I have. If there is a chronic shortage right now, most of these foreign workers are already working in that occupation. So in my mind, when you're looking to meet chronic economic needs, you're bringing people from outside of Canada into Canada to fill those roles, or you're rewarding international students that are taking programs in those key sectors where there is critical shortage, and you're rewarding them for then transitioning into the workforce and having taken that education to get them prepared. Okay. And of course, TFWs, of course, are good candidates for PR. They have an opportunity to find work in their fields. Well, often they're already working in them, and requiring experience in an in-demand field could address the most acute identified shortages. Well, this is why the temporary foreign worker program is going to become increasingly important. And they also say in your comments, you may wish to address the chronic and long-term needs that cannot be solved through in-Canada solutions. Well, okay, I was just talking about that, right? Better wages and working conditions, skill upgrades, improving productivity, including capital and technological investment. So you might also want to wish on whether to comment on whether to focus on workers who are in Canada versus those with recent experience who may or may not currently reside in the country. Okay, considerations with respect to numbers as well as any implications for diversity and anti-racism perspective. So this means that they are absolutely looking at people outside of Canada. This is not a wholly made in Canada solution. So coming and working in Canada and getting a job offer, yes, it's super important and opens doors to you guys, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not. And then of course, supporting Francophone immigration, it's critical. Okay. They know that they have mandates. The minister has stipulated that the target is 4.4%. Let's see if they give any specific details. You can see between 2017 and 2021, nearly 110,000 Francophone or bilingual were admitted through economic programs. Approximately 30,000 intended to settle outside of Quebec. So yes, economic programs destined for Quebec, and then 30,000 outside. And you can see in 2021, 4,185 French speakers were admitted through the economic programs who intended to settle outside of Quebec. And 2,235 were admitted through express entry. So there's a number of different programs, okay? Yeah, that these levels do not fill labor shortages. They're insufficient to counter demographic decline, and we'll just see where it goes from there, right? They talk about tourism and service industries, high demand for French-speaking and bilingual workers, okay? And then once again, selecting Francophone and bilingual candidates. I'm not going to get into any more of that. And then we want to hear from you. No, you don't. Minister, you didn't really want to hear from us. If you did, you would have actually put some of your money that you put into building nice little infographics into at least posting this on Twitter or letting people know that it was a possibility, and you didn't do that. Okay. Next steps. We don't care about all of that. So there you go, you guys. This is a very, very detailed breakdown of the actual report from the minister. So let's jump into some more questions from people, see what they've got to say. And I am going to be wrapping this up in 20 minutes. So we'll take 20 minutes of questions. If you've got super chats, I'll definitely treat those with priority. Let's see what we've got here. So we have Gooner Boy. I'm going to hit you, my friend. He says, hi, Mark. I appreciate everything, Cedric, and you have done for me so far. I got the ADR and Cedric helped me with it in December. I got the biometric request after on January the 6th, and I submitted on the 7th. Fingers crossed for passport request. I will give you applause there, Gooner. We absolutely loved working with you. You were a fantastic person. And, you know, this is what we see a lot of you guys. People, when they have run into problems or they have challenges, we're able to step in and help and try to navigate. And when things really go south and there's refusals, one of the things that we actually specialize, well, I can't say specialize, one of the services that we offer in our firm, when you go to Holthe Immigration Law here, you'll see that we have a section on legal help. And this section on legal help is all about refused applications, delayed applications, and a whole host of things that flow from misrepresentation. That's when the bad stuff happens. And Cedric in our firm is driving the ship. He's a phenomenal member of our team. And yeah, he's based in Ottawa, and he frequently teleworks from abroad. Just a phenomenal guy. And I recommend that you book a consult with him or any of us, and we can give you some help. But it's a pleasure, Gooner. It was just, yeah, please let us know as soon as that approval comes in. Okay. All right, let's see what else we've got here for those that are tuning in and watching. We're talking right now about what I call Express Entry 2.0, and really we know now where they're going. There's no secrets. There's no, there's no confusion. We know exactly what they're going to be doing. Vibov says, does Alberta lack, let me get rid of this one, sorry. Vibov says, does Alberta lack business process candidates like digital marketing people? Well, like I said, when you go to the actual data that the Alberta government is relying upon, you can look right here and see what the short-term employment forecasts are. So you can see the short-term forecast provides a 3-year overview of occupations expected to be in demand during that period. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see that this was last, let's see, do they even have an updated date? Doesn't look like it is updated, but it's recent. So 2023 here. Okay, but anyways, if you look at this, you can see where, like we talked about, where the occupations, where they see there's going to be shortages, and health, and yeah, both long and short term, oil sands, labor demands, regional occupation demands. You can see all of this here. There's forecasts for each of the communities. So I love reading what's happening in my hometown of Lethbridge. So what are the occupations in demand? And you can click on this, you can open it up, and you can take a look where the major regions, areas of shortage, and where they're going to be. Let's see if we can, I've got a bunch here. And you can see with all the occupations where they envision in the major groups shortages to exist. Okay, so I'll turn that back to you, and that's where I would direct. That's where I would direct Vibov to take a look for the provinces. A lot of different ones have different, different reports that they rely upon, occupational forecasts, and of course the job bank. Okay, let's see. We got a couple more supers here. So let's see what we've got here. Looks like Catan maybe post another. Okay, so Catan, I need you, my friend, to include your question in the little super. So, okay, let's see what Catan's got next here. He says, it's me again. Is there any news from IRCC in regards to hiring more immigration officers? Ultimately, I believe that can resolve a lot of these issues. This occupation is also on knock. Yes. And I'll just pull up Minister Fraser here. So it was the beginning of last year. I've now dropped off the national executive. I'm no longer the national chair for the Canadian Bar Association's national immigration section. So I dropped off last September. But in our meetings in the beginning of last year, Minister Fraser was very candid. And he said that they're having a really hard time finding people. If there are labor shortages all over, why in the world would you not expect it also to be within immigration? There's been millions of dollars that have been pumped into IRCC to try to hire officers to deal with this. But it takes time for officers to be trained and to be competent to actually adjudicate your applications. And so the minister's kind of stuck. So yes, they're hiring. Absolutely they are. But the reality is they can't hire fast enough to deal with this disaster that's been created. And it really is a nightmare, right? Okay, Ali says, is it fine to work as an independent contractor for a company on a postgrad work permit or bridging open work permit? Yes, Ali, you totally can, but there are very few pathways to permanent residence. I would never, ever advise you to work as an independent contractor for any company on a postgrad work permit, because you will not be able to claim that Canadian work experience for CEC, Express Entry, and many of the various PNPs. So my advice, one, I'm going to click this little bell. It's a little ding. And then I'm going to recommend that you slide over here to our site and book a consult with one of the lawyers in the firm. And if you guys are wondering what people are saying when they hire our firm, and remember, we started Holthe Immigration Law again as a brand new entity at the beginning of 2020. So right at the middle of the pandemic, we started. And so you can see we have over 110 reviews here so far. And I'm very proud of our 4.9% rating for clients. And it starts with a consult, but then our clients hire us after. The key and the reason we do consultations first, paid consults, is because in many cases, we can resolve issues, answer questions, and people are off on their way. But there's a lot of people out there that just don't realize the way that we offer our services, that there are lawyers out there, immigration lawyers, who will walk through the process with them hand in hand, that don't just push things down to low-level paralegals who have over 20 years of experience in immigration. You know, my first exposure was in It was in 2002 to immigration when I worked on the border as an immigration officer, when the new then Immigration and Refugee Protection Act was rolled out. And I was an immigration officer working on the border before the Canada Border Service Agency was even created. And Alicia has been working, she's been a practicing immigration lawyer for, 2 years longer than I have. So that's what people get. And that's why, and that has really driven why we follow the model that we do. Okay. So I see avoid it, Ali. Avoid it, my friend. Okay. Let's see. We've got a couple more here. We got about 12 more minutes before we wrap things up. As we talked about, if you're joining us a little bit late, it's all about Express Entry 2.0. And, this will be as a recording. You can watch it after on the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel. Okay, let's see what we have here. If there's any. Effie, let's drop this. Effie says, thanks, Mark, for your regular updates. Keep my hopes alive. The passport request received after 18 months. AOR July 2nd, 2021. Thanks again. Oh, yes. The passport request received after 18 months. Yes, it takes time, but I'm so happy for you. So congratulations. I'm going to give you one of these ones, Effie. Okay. Yeah, cute dog. That's when Simba went running across my lap. He was kind of a wet dog because my wife took him down to the off-leash dog park that's along the river, the Old Man River here in Lethbridge. And he got just covered in mud. And so she had to come and throw him in the tub, and I was going to help her. But what was I doing? This. So, and my daughters were both off. One son's in Idaho. He's going to school down there at Brigham Young University in Rexburg. And my other son is down in Chile. He's serving a mission for our church. So he's been down there 14 months. And, when he left 14 months ago, he didn't really know like a lick of Spanish. But now he can speak Spanish, and he's learned. And I'm really, really proud of him. And he's got another 8 months or so serving the people of Chile, volunteering and helping out and teaching them about Jesus Christ and our church. And so I'm really proud of Connor. So he's got about 8 months left. And way long time ago, I went to Portugal. And so that was my experience, yes, internationally. And really, I think that drove a lot of my decision to become an immigration lawyer. So I love the people of Portugal and the Portuguese language. I was originally supposed to go to Brazil, but guess what, guys? I had visa delays. Why? Because it was taking too long to process my visa as a religious worker in Brazil. And so I ended up getting reassigned to Portugal because they were more facilitative. Sound familiar, you guys? But one day I'm going to join you guys in Brazil. I will get down there, and I may very well think about setting up an office in Brazil and Chile, both countries, after seeing so many people relying local agents who then just mess everything up for them. And they, local agents, unless they're actually regulated by Canadian the Consultant Association, it's illegal to use them. And so many consults I have with people. So maybe I'm going to start setting up a network of overseas offices just to help you guys in your countries, even though all you need to do is reach out via Zoom right now, and you can hire us to help you. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yes, the cute dog. Okay, I think I saw a super slide in, so we'll address that one. So this one is, okay, let's see if I can get this one. Okay, there we go. I think I've got it here. Okay. All right, so Jag says, would long-haul truck drivers be in targeted draws? It's entirely possible now. That is a very, very good question. That's a very good question, because if you look at the adjustments to tier, one of the adjustments is for long-haul truck drivers to move up to tier 3, right? And so they're now eligible. So that's entirely possible. That's a great point. I'm going to give you one of these applauses, my friend, because it's entirely possible. Absolutely. Okay, let's see what else we have here as we zip through here. Okay, so this is another one. I think this is one. Okay, we've got from Lovey Dovey. He says, after the EAPR, while waiting on a decision, can you travel outside Canada if you still have a valid TRV and work permit? Will you have to do a new police clearance certificate? No, while you're traveling outside of Canada. Well, let me rephrase this. At any time, IRCC could ask if things were dragging on for a long time to get a new police clearance certificate. They can always do that. But if you have a valid TRV, a valid work permit, and you just want to travel outside while your application is being processed, there's no issues with that one. You know, obviously if something happens overseas and, you know, you end up getting a criminal record or something like that, border officers can refuse entry to you for being inadmissible. But generally speaking, when you have a TRV and a work permit in place and the job is still here and you're just going on a vacation, very rarely will that ever be a problem. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Ali's got another question. What if someone already has enough Canadian work experience and received an ITA and submitted his documents and holds a bridging open work permit? Is it fine to work as an independent contractor while waiting for PR? Okay, so once again, it just comes down to the type of application that you're applying through. Is there a job offer associated with your work? Is it just Canadian experience? If that's the case, then yeah, it doesn't matter. If you already have an ITA, you've already submitted your EAPR, then yeah, you can, you know, if the work permit is truly open, you can work in whatever capacity you want, provided there are not some restrictions. I don't know in this case if your Canadian experience is through a provincial nominee program or there are other links to an employer. Really, Ali, I recommend that you book a consult so that we can look at this and just make sure there's no other issues. But if you're on an open work permit, bridging open work permits sometimes are employer specific. And so if they are not truly open and you need to continue working for the employer, then you know, no, you need to do that. But as far as like post-grad work permits and things, there's nothing stopping someone from working as an independent contractor. Okay, let's see. Okay, Izan, I'm not sure if you, my friend, have another question. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Izan, I think this is your question. And we're getting close to about 6 minutes left. With my postgrad work permit expiring next month, should I apply for a TRV or how do I continue living here? Izan, this is one where I will ring my bell and I will ask you to slide over and book a consultation with Alicia or any of our lawyers here. We've got lots of availability for consultations and it's super easy. You can do it right now. And then we can address that issue in depth because it's not something that I can tell you as far as what you should do. And, you know, the decision to switch to a TRV, there's consequences that come from it, but also there's consequences from falling out of status. So I'll just leave that one at that. Let's see if there's anyone else that I am missing. It's hard to tell you guys if I've missed any questions because we've got multiples in there. Let's see. I don't want to miss any supers here. So let's see. Okay, so we've got Izan, and I think Jag, I've addressed your question, I believe. Okay. All right, let's get to some other questions here as we wrap up. And yeah, it's been a long day. Oh, big shout out to Ganga, who's over on Facebook. YouTube has really driven the ship here. Why is it so difficult to find a job in Canada from abroad? So many job vacancies, yet no employer is willing to hire workers from outside. Yes, it's difficult, but it all depends upon your occupation. It depends upon how desperate that employer is. If an employer feels like they can find someone within Canada, then they're obviously going to go down that path because the labor market impact assessment process is ugly. It is not easy. It's difficult. It's one of the most difficult applications that we, the lawyers of Holthe Immigration Law, that we do. You know, we've got a large company that we're just starting with 100 occupations and it's heavy equipment operators. So if any of you guys are heavy equipment operators from abroad, I'm happy to share some information and details on that as we start to move forward. But the LMIA process is really, really difficult. And yeah, and it just depends. Rohit says, how long is it taking currently to obtain a new LMIA for a tech worker under the GTS? Well, right now, LMIAs for GTS, you know, they can be, up 2 weeks to up to a month or longer. It's supposed to be expedited, but everything is disaster within immigration, you guys. ESDC is better. They're getting better, but it's still not easy. It's still super, super challenging. Okay, let's see. Okay, Torab has a question. Torab says, my CRS score is 483 with 1 year of Canadian experience. How long do you think I'll have to wait for an IT from Express Entry Draws? Torab, that's a really good question. And the reality is, like I said, with the minister, the minister has specifically stated in the spring. So as we did our little Google search, you guys followed me along the Google search, right? I think we did that together, right? Yeah, we did. Okay, I'll show you. So he said that he's gonna start targeted draws in March. In the spring. Well, March the 20th is the first day of spring, and June 21st is the last day of spring in Canada. So with that being said, maybe within that range. Maybe within that range. Okay, Jag says, can I extend my LMIA if it's near expiration? Well, it's your employer who extends the labor market impact assessment. And yes, it can be. Now, usually when we're talking about an LMIA, those LMIAs are currently being issued for as much with expiry dates of up to 18 months, the LMIA. And what does that mean? It means that you have 18 months to use that LMIA to apply for your work permit. Now, I'm not sure if you're conflating those two things, but work permits that are LMIA based, if that's what you're asking, absolutely. As early as possible, the employer should apply for a new LMIA to allow you to extend your work permit. Okay. All right. Karthik says, will retail supervisors be in targeted draws? I don't know about retail supervisors. I don't think so, largely because they have dominated the ranks of people who have qualified in the past. And, you know, there may be shortages, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just not so sure about any service related industry. There's so much competition, and with the postgrad work permit holders right now, they tend to fill a lot of those ranks, and service related occupations are ones that Canadian youth and university and college age students are typically the ones, that's where they get their first entry into the labor market. So we never have really seen those as being priority occupations to specifically target. All right. Okay, guys, I think we're at the very, very end of the line here. And I want to thank everybody for all your questions. Remember that tomorrow, right in the same place at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, I have my live Q&A. So if you didn't get your questions answered now, don't stress, because I will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's noon Eastern Time. And you can bring all of your questions at that time, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. It was great. This was my little overview of Express Entry 2.0. And as always, it's sponsored by Holthe Immigration Law, my law firm. And the Canadian Immigration Institute that is hosting this is the delivery arm for all of our education services and our teaching. We have, as I indicated here, we've got a number of courses on the Canadian Immigration Institute. There's links below that you can access right now. Courses on applying for your own study permit, sponsoring a spouse, LMIA courses, and we had the QET video was still here, and this is brand new. Well, this is free that we've had open for a long period of time, and of course Express Entry. And so all of those are available, and they're just chock full of everything that you could possibly need to submit your own immigration application. Okay, and I guess I should probably finish as well with the fact that Holthe Immigration Law, the sponsor of this, I don't even know if I have any pages open. Yeah, right here. Okay, Holthe Immigration Law. We have a ton of content. Always go to our blog section and read the many, many blogs that we have that are here. Tons of resources and a lot more information on all types of immigration applications. And when you hire us to help you, you hire us as your immigration lawyers. All you have to do is click on Speak to a Lawyer to start the process, and you can do that right now. All right. Thanks so much, you guys. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Mansoor, great to have you. Ganga, thanks a lot. And for all the rest of you, have a wonderful evening. And I guess we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, take care.